Good evening. Welcome to the RSU 5 Board of Directors meeting. It is Wednesday, October 28th, 2020, and we are in the Freeport High School cafeteria. Hopefully Candy will be joining us. Lindsay will not be here this evening, but hopefully Candy will be here shortly. And we'll get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I would take a motion for consideration and approval of the minutes from the October 14th, 2020 meeting as presented, barring any errors or omissions. Jeremy, thank you. Second, Mara. We do have revised minutes in the packet because we had inadvertently misspelled a name. Sorry about that, Beth. So the revised ones are in your packet. No other changes other than that spelling adjustment. But with a motion and a second, all those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. Adjustments to the agenda. We have a couple tonight.
Yes, thank you. We want to move item 9C, the capital improvement plan, to the November 4th meeting. Dennis Willett is unable to be with us this evening. And then under new business, I would like to add an item 13, a snow day discussion. And also I'd like to add a new number 16, an executive session to discuss labor contracts and proposals pursuant to 1 MRSA section 4056D.
Thank you. All right, so we will get started with good news and recognition, and I think Craig's going to come up to the microphone and tell us about the state champion golf team.
Good evening. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here on a very good note and to recognize some outstanding play. I was fortunate enough to take these gentlemen to the Western Maine Conference championship meet and state qualifier. Unfortunately, Coach was a victim of our 14-day quarantine, and he wasn't able to go. So it was a nice fall, crisp, sunny day, and I got to watch some great golf. And we wound up conference champions. In the top 5 scores of the day, we came in 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we almost swept the field. And then a couple weeks later, at the state champion, not only did we win the team state champion, but we also earned the individual Class B state champion as well. So guys, when I call out your name, you're going to walk right up front to the chair, and we'll get a picture taken with you and the chair getting your certificate. First off is freshman Eli Spalding.
And we want to thank Coach Willett. Could you just stand up so we can recognize you for your hard work coaching the team? Maybe he could come up and we could get a picture with the trophy.
Oh, excellent.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah. And
Those-
it
those-
sounds like we're well poised to win another one next year. It doesn't sound like we're losing a lot of seniors, right?
That's right. I do want to thank the Freeport Police and Fire and Rescue. They gave the team an escort out of town, as well as coming back into town, and they're also joined by folks from Durham and Pownell as well. So thank you for an escort out and an escort back in, and congratulations to the team.
Okay, so we will move on to the report from our student rep on the board. Liam is with us this evening.
Okay, so I don't have too much to report since Brady was last here, but I did want to bring up a few things. So the Freeport Running Boosters, they're putting on a fundraiser to support the cross-country team, the indoor track and field team, and the outdoor track and field team. They're selling Freeport masks, and you can buy them online, and they've got both youth and adult sizes from what I've read. So I believe I said a few weeks ago that Freeport was doing, or the RSU 5 would coordinate a flu shot or a flu shot clinic. However, that's not happening after all. The Interact Club, so Freeport High School's Community Service Club, is doing a clothing drive for the homeless shelter in Portland right now. Gently used clothes in good condition are being collected through the end of October, so only a few more days, but if you have anything, I'm sure they'd appreciate it. So Freeport High School's play Antigone, and hopefully I pronounced that correctly again, or Antigone now, was performed this past weekend, October 23rd, 24th, and 25th. I saw the set a few times. It looked really good. Sadly, I missed the actual show, but if you missed the show too, there is an online on-demand version on Broadway On Demand that will play on October 30th, 31st, and November 1st. And I think you purchase a ticket through the Broadway On Demand software. There's a link published, I think, on the website and on the daily newsletter. And I don't usually report about the middle school, what they're doing, but I did see that they're doing a civil rights team that meets weekly and creates projects to bring awareness, just thinking and discussion of current events and of social issues. I thought that was quite interesting, so I might continue to report a few things about the middle school in the future too. And then athletics, I finally figured out how to use the Freeport Athletics website, and then we got a new one, so I'm still struggling a little bit, but I did want to report that the Western Maine Conference Cross Country Championship and state qualifying meet happened today at Hunter Road Field. Haven't heard anything about scores yet, but I talked to a few members and they were really optimistic.
So at 12 o'clock today, I was out at the start of the boys cross country meet while it was snowing. And it was a cold, bitter day, but they all persisted and did a fine job. Our boys, so this is the first time that there wasn't a regional championship. At a regional championship, all Class B schools in southern Maine go, and there's 30-some schools. Because of social distancing, they went to a playoff or a tournament selection format similar to golf, where the conferences in their conference championships, the top percentage of schools in the conference championships qualify. And we had 10 schools involved today. The top 3 schools finishes, the top 3 teams went on to the state championship. Our boys finished 4th. However, we did have a runner, Martin Horn, who finished 2nd and will go as an individual. Our girls team finished 3rd, so they have qualified for the state meet. So congratulations to those. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much all I have right now. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Liam. All right, good news from the Pownell Elementary School. Lisa Demick.
Good evening, everyone. So I want to start by just updating you on some good news around the shift that we made this year to the 5-day-a-week, half-day pre-K. I don't know if you've seen the picture of what I call my little ducklings on the RSU 5 web stream, but they're going in outside, rain or shine. They've made, great use of our forest. They have Forest Tuesday where they spend the whole day out there and, use Audubon cards for bird identification. They have magnifying glasses for insects and do, their reading and writing out there. Kelly Howard, our pre-K teacher, reports that because of the consistency and the 5-day-a-week program, she's where she was with the phonics implementation, the Speedy Sound work. She's right now where she was last February. So she's really excited about the retention she's seeing in that work and just how much the 5-day routine is really helping her kids to really embrace school and be able to make the most of everything there. Another piece of good news I wanted to share was just the benefits that we've seen at Pownell Elementary from some of the grant funding that's been offered. In addition to the CRF money that the district has had, we've also benefited from an FPAD grant, and our music program now has keyboards for a full class. So Allie's been able to do keyboarding, and the kids are so excited about that. So we're very thankful for FPAD for providing that. Power Engineering has also provided a $1,000 grant so that we can augment our STEM activities. So we're doing a rocketry unit through them and a construction zone for our pre-K. So we really feel as though there's been a lot of generosity around really helping us to kind of have some resources to really think differently this year. And the final one is, as of Monday, Pownell is in green. So we were able to bring all of our kids back, and it's going really well. And already the teachers are and the kids are so excited. I heard a first grader say, "And we get to come back tomorrow." So that's going really well too. So that's the good news. Any questions? I'll be back for goals, so you'll get to see more of me. Oh, that?
Just a super quick thing. Your little ducklings, what were they wearing?
They have rain suits so that they can be outside in all weather. So they have, they have puddle jumper boots, and in fact, one of their walks one day was to just jump in puddles. So, it's just so fun to watch them really embracing the outside and really being out there and making the most of it. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's awesome.
If only we had those for the board. What a great activity as a team. Puddle jumping. Right? It's fantastic. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so we are to our first public comment of the evening, and we will we'll be holding public comments similar to how we have in the last few meetings, obviously in person, although I don't see anybody here at the moment, or via Zoom. So if you would like to make a public comment, you can access that ability through the Zoom. The Zoom link is on the agenda. It's also, I believe, on the landing page of RSU 5. So I don't know if we have anybody on.
We don't have anyone on right now. Would you like to give folks a minute to find the link, or what do you think?
Yeah, we'll see if anybody hops on in the next minute or so, and then we can give them the directions on how to join us or let us know. In the meantime, I will share that we had gotten some feedback about some difficulty understanding the board members during our conversations and deliberations as a board. it's hard without being able to see people's mouths. We had the cameras kind of not zooming in and out. So we've made bigger name tags. So hopefully everybody's noticed they're bigger name tag. So hopefully people from home can be able to read those. We're also trying to work with the cameras to try and get a little bit of zooming, and also making sure that when we speak, I'm recognizing you so people know who to look to, so that we can hopefully make it a little more clear for folks at home who's speaking. So I'm very obvious because I'm a hand speaker. So it's used non-hand speakers. We can't tell if you're talking or not. So.
I don't see any online attendees.
Okay, so we will check back in later at our second public comment. So if you do still have something you want to share, you have another opportunity at the end of the agenda, but we will continue on from here and move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. I did want to recognize for the board, Jeff Lewis is helping with the cameras tonight. He is our new interim technology director. So welcome, Jeff, and it's great that you're here to help with the cameras and that the board is able to meet you. So our Hybrid Plus, I feel like is going pretty well. More students are being invited back, as you heard from Lisa. PES is fully back to 5 days a week. At Durham, we're going to be able to invite K1 and grades 5 back because of the numbers in those classes. They'll be coming back on November the 12th, and then they'll be increasing the class sizes in 2, 3, and 4 to they feel like they can hold 13 students in those classrooms. At Mass Landing, 36 more students have already returned, and at Moore Street, we have 73 students that are now attending 5 days a week. At Freeport High School, since I last reported, our learning labs are now synchronous, so students have access to those on their days home if they're struggling understanding something. At the middle level, content areas at both the middle school are now doing synchronous learning, probably in the about 90% of the time. And I just want to really acknowledge what a huge lift this has been for some of our teachers, and we're very grateful for their willingness to kind of continue to look at ways to improve the model for all of our students. We are fortunate that we have had no more COVID cases in RSU 5, so we remain at the 2 confirmed and 3 probable that we had a few weeks ago, for a total of 5 of our students having had COVID since the return in September. I'm very pleased at that number. I think it shows how hard we're working to try to keep all the students and staff safe. There have been no staff positive cases of COVID. As you know, the data in the state is trending upwards, including in our own communities. Freeport is now up to 33 cases, and Durham is up to 6. Pownell still remains at less than 5 cases. I'm concerned about the way the state data is trending at the moment, and you probably saw the article in the paper. There has been no decision yet about winter sports. Over the past couple of weeks, I've been working with Rick, the Director of Finance, and Cynthia, the Assistant Superintendent, on reviewing where we are with turnover hiring savings from the beginning of the year. I'm happy to report that I feel like with these savings, we'll be able to continue to offer the remote learning option through the remainder of the year for our students and staff that are currently in that model. We will not be adding any more teachers to that option, but we will be able to continue with the staffing that we currently have. On Sunday night, I was delighted and happy to be able to attend Antigone, and I'm just thrilled that our drama students had this opportunity to perform this classic play. They did an outstanding job, and kudos to Natalie Safley, Nate Menefield, and Ben Popman, and the entire cast on a job really very well done. was a little chilly for this Texan, but I survived it and enjoyed the play in spite of that. Today, Cynthia and I attended the MSSA conference virtually. I kind of wondered, like, how would that go? But, you know, I really enjoyed it. You know, you were, you know, I was in my house. We were able to tune in, hear the sessions. So I'm really looking forward to the conference at the end of the week with many of you, which will be on Friday and Saturday. The big news from the commissioner today is that there will no longer be an MEA. So they are going to be moving to a new vendor, which they're not quite ready to announce, but I think we'll know within the month. This will also mean that the state will no longer continue to pay for the SAT that we usually give to our 11th graders in the spring. And you heard the wonderful news about the cross-country team, and I just want to do a shout out to congratulate them. And then Leanne Swilly, the bus driver, has resigned from RSU 5. And then I want to conclude my report tonight with a continued note of gratitude to our staff here in RSU 5 who continue to work hard to keep our students safe and ensure that they are receiving the very best education that we can offer during these very difficult times. It's hard, exhausting work, but they're remaining adaptable and looking to continually improve. This is a very different educational year from past years, and I'm truly appreciative of all of their efforts. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Okay, so we will, oh, yes. Susanna.
Sorry, I just have a quick question. Sure. Becky, when you say that you assessed the funding and have funding to continue the remote option through the year, is that the academic year, not the calendar year? Or is that...
Thank you. Yes, thank you for that clarifying point. Yes, because of the CARES Act, that's being funded through December, but now because of the savings that we've had in hiring, we'll be able to continue that through the end of the the school calendar year, which would be in June of 2021.
So I see that we have online attendees raising their hands, and there will be another public comment period at the end of the meeting. I'm sorry, the first comment period is over.
Thank you, Maura. Valley.
Thank you. Thank you, Becky, for that report. That was excellent. A few more clarifications about the stages that schools are taking towards bringing more students in. Obviously, panel is full on green, and you described DCS, Moore Street, Mass Landing, and 2, 3, and 4th grade and DCS. Do you know yet what is the plan to continue to bring students in?
So I think that, you know, we have probably reached capacity. And so it's something that we will be assessing every 6 weeks or so, just like our RTI cycle, to see if there are students that, you know, that because they only have the 2.5 days, are they starting now to fall further behind. So this will be kind of a rotating thing that we'll continue to assess. And I'm not sure if they're total at capacity, but I think we're near capacity. And we have had 200 students sign up for the Wolf Neck, so we'll be able to offer for a lot more of the kids starting on November the 9th, for them to at least get another day of instruction. So we'll keep assessing, but I think we're getting pretty near capacity for where we feel at the moment how many kids we can get back safely.
Thank you for that. And about Wolf Neck and that program, Is that going to be for all those 3 elementary schools that still have students who are not able to attend 5 days?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And
thank
we'll
you.
be looking at, we've been working on the numbers, and I think they've identified, I think the principals have identified, you know, the ones that we're going to invite. I'm hoping that we can get almost everybody back that's not back 5 days a week. But we're still finalizing those lists. Those offers will be going out, and I'll probably know that in another week.
Okay, thank you. And then last question, this is about testing. If the MEA no longer exists, are we just going to do the NWA then
Well,
and fund it ourselves, or what are we looking at for
well,
the future?
we will continue to do the NWEA, and then the state will come out and talk about a new vendor and a new way of kind of doing the assessment.
Oh, a new test, starting over. Is that right?
Yes, but I think that, yeah, it is.
Oh,
I mean, there are a lot of details that have yet to be kind of worked out, but it's meant to be more formative in real time is what they're hoping for.
okay. But we're starting with new data that we have to build upon. So what we have accumulated from prior years doesn't help us assess growth.
That's correct, and I think there's even a new vendor for the science test at the 11th grade level.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thinking of the numbers of kids and who were able to get back, were we able to order the portables? Because that would increase numbers too, right? Once they're
Oh,
in.
that's a good point. Thank you. So we do have the portables ordered. I think, I don't have a time frame for when they are going to arrive, but I think the first one, I think Moore Street, because Dennis had already gone to the town, that one will probably be done more quickly. And once that is here, or even before it gets here, we will start brainstorming about how are we going to use that to provide, you know, either more instruction or, you know, I think there are a lot of things we can do. I hate to start throwing out ideas and getting teachers and parents anxious, so I'll just keep that for another day.
Okay.
But it will provide us with the opportunity to get more kids back.
Thank you. All right, so we will move on to the administrative reports and start with finance.
Good evening, everyone. Work continues to be enjoyable. I'm finding a lot of things that are unique to RSU 5, but we're making significant progress, I think, on a lot of different fronts. And part of that, I think Becky sort of referenced when she asked me about doing some analysis with regard to monies that could be used to retain remote teachers. That I think in the past would have been sort of a monumental task, but been able to sort of whip ENCODE into shape to be able to provide a little bit more financial analysis at a somewhat quicker pace than probably has been used to in the past. The financial reports are in your package. I have nothing significant to report with regard to execution. I think we're tracking along very well, and as Becky has again sort of alluded to, we're expending CRF round one and round two monies with Cynthia's guidance and expertise on that. So overall, I would say I feel very confident about the financial standing of the district at this time. We did receive an email from Maddie, who requested that we sort of start talking again about the cost sharing. That next meeting of the Finance Committee will be on November the 4th, and that particular topic will be on the agenda for the Finance Committee to discuss. Other than that, I have nothing further to report unless there are questions.
Maddie?
I didn't mean to add that to the Finance Committee's agenda. I was simply seeking clarification if we had communicated our change in our schedule to the 3 towns.
Yeah, we're not reopening the cost sharing at our next our Finance Committee meeting.
Right, we'll just be discussing the communication plan for that to make sure all are aware.
I saw another hand, didn't I? Oh, Susanna.
Just a quick clarification question. I'm sure I'm missing this myself, but on this sheet, you've got Article 1 through 11. Is there a document somewhere that says what those different articles is?
Yes, there is, and that'll be on, I'll include that on the next one, but generally speaking, if memory serves, Article 1 is regular instruction. If you'd like me to go down them?
No, you don't. If it's something that we're going to be expecting, I mean, those are the types of things I was expecting them to be. And if that's going to be something we'll see later, I'm happy with that. I just, at some point, would like to pair that. So, thank you.
Happy to provide.
Yeah, so if you went back to our budget packets, they're all broken down, and they would say what each article is. So
I was assuming it was relating to that.
Yeah, exactly.
I hadn't gone through it myself.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, I knew what 1 was, and then I was lost.
After that, it's a little, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
And just when we were ready for some more, Pownell goals. Lisa.
Thank you. I want to start before I kind of launch into the goals with just a little background about where they came from. I know we have a lot of new board members and even for the public. Pownell has gone through quite a bit of staff changes over the past few years, through retirements, through teachers opting to move to other buildings, and most tragically, the death of our first grade teacher. So over the past few years, we've really been working on, how do we keep a high level of instruction and kind of stay true to our goals with so much staff turnover. In fact, at this point, every one of our grade level teachers is new to that, at least that position within the past 4 years. So, and in a building where you have one teacher at each grade level, one of the things that became really apparent was a lot of institutional knowledge leaves when someone leaves. So when thinking about the goals that we set for last year, we really looked at trying to kind of stay true to what do we need to do to kind of capture some of that institutional knowledge and make sure we can stay true to our primary goal of meeting every child's needs and having that collaborative space to really lift the level of anyone kind of coming in to the organization new. So the research that really appealed to us was around building a multi-tiered system of support, and that kind of grew out of the RTI movement around, it's not just, shouldn't just be a path to like who needs to get referred to special ed. It's really about looking at providing, something this district feels so strongly about, a year's worth of growth for every child, and really looking at, what the strengths are around tier 1, what we need to do at what we call tier 2, the intervention level, and then supports beyond that. And it was a great year for us because we were able to get the RTIB Ed Tech, which helped us with really looking at that piece. So we started looking in 2 buckets, the social emotional bucket and then the academic bucket. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of crossover between the 2. So within a multi-tiered system, you're really looking at how are you gathering information all the time on the impact of instruction, and then what are you doing with that information. So we started that process last year with the full knowledge that it would be probably a 3-year implementation that we were working on. I'm here to tell you that tonight, with all the things we didn't foresee last fall, I think we may end up making it more of a 4-year implementation, because I want to be very careful this year about what new work we put on the teachers. They're thinking and rethinking what they're doing every day. And so, a lot of this work is really refining some of the practices we have in place. So it's not really new work. It's making sure we have it written down in the staff handbook, that we have procedures that are transparent to everyone, so that it's not that you need to rely on sort of that, institutional knowledge in order to know how to get students' needs met. And so we launched something that has happened in other buildings last year, which was a full-blown implementation of responsive classroom. So it started in the summer with a 4-day training, and was really a great experience with so many new teachers to really think about, how are we building a positive community where we're developmentally responsive and, students have academic choices. All things that are very well aligned with the new strategic plan as well. So that was a big part of our initiative last year, was the launch of Responsive Classroom. And you can see on the goal document some of the things we did. One of the things that's not there is we were able to have a consultant come from the Center for Responsive Teaching and actually give us feedback on which practices they saw us doing well and which practices we could beef up anymore. And so we'll use that information in the work that we're doing this year. One of the book studies that we'll do this year is around the joyful classroom, because as we're transitioning kids back to school, really helping them to be engaged and really helping them to have some academic choice is, something that's foundational in Responsive Classroom, and it's something that our teachers are passionate about in this learning environment where there may be shifts and turns in what we do. So that was a big part of the social emotional work that we did last year, along with starting to lay the foundations of how to support students who really need something more than what's happening in the classroom for emotional or behavioral support. We looked at a curriculum called the SMARTS curriculum. We ended up sort of trading that out. We tried it. We didn't really feel like it, it's going to stay in our toolbox, but for what we were seeing from our young students, it really didn't hit the self-regulation kind of work that we wanted to help students with. So we'll continue to work on that. We selected a behavior screening, and we'll be using that for this year. One of our plans that was on last year that will be moved to this year, that's very appropriate for this year, is to do some work around trauma-informed instruction. So our guidance counselor and social worker have been trained in that and are ready to and poised to do that. We created what's called a care team. So our nurse, our social worker, guidance counselor, and myself meet every week to really talk about any families that are in crisis or any students that need additional support. And so that team will lead the work around the trauma-informed practices this November. So that kind of got moved from last year to this year. Academically, we really looked at work similar to what Emily Grimm talked about when she was here, really around unpacking the curriculum. One of the big differences was last year we launched a much stronger partnership with Durham Community School. So our two schools with smaller grade level teams could come together periodically through the year to do more collaborative work. And we had intended to do a staff survey in June, and that didn't happen, but when we did sort of feedback with teachers around what worked this year and what didn't, it was overwhelmingly positive that they wanted to continue that work, and they have continued that work this year. So and that also helps us to be more efficient with our strategists and just gives teachers more colleagues to work with. This year, a lot of our work together will be around looking at student work and really looking at like where are students right now, what do they need next, and our big focus with that is around writing. That's one of the places we got a lot of parent feedback that in the spring, that was a place parents felt really challenging. We see right now stamina in writing. We're doing a lot of cheerleading, like that's been something that's been kind of a heavy lift for kids. So we're working on really looking at that student work and making sure that we're adjusting our instruction to be personalized to what kids need as far as what we're seeing in their work. The other piece we did last year around the academic part of a multi-tiered system was to really look at the discourse that was happening in our math classrooms. We were able to participate with the University of Chicago around that and kind of get some feedback and really look at that communication and reasoning strand in our classrooms. This year, our new academic goal will be around really using technology as a differentiation tool. We've purchased a program called Freckle that all of the other schools have also purchased, but gives teachers the opportunity at any level that a student's working, to adjust what students are doing. It's also going to help us if we have to transition to Red to continue to have work that kids get automatic feedback on and they can really work at their level of instruction. So that's one of the tools. But teachers are also working on things like, there's a handwriting app on for the iPads, and helping kids to keep digital portfolios where they're recording themselves reading now, looking at a fluency rubric and saying, okay, this is what I did now. Here's one thing I could do to improve this, and then recording again, and then kind of keeping those collections all through. So we're very thankful for the one-to-one, and we're trying to make sure that we're building in opportunities to use that to our advantage so that we can really meet students where they are. One of the advantages of the format that we have, and one of the needs that we have, is to really support students across a wide continuum. And so technology is one of the leverage points we're looking at to make sure that wherever they are, we're able to meet them where they are. One good thing about sort of coming late in October is I do have some data for you that's in the in my write-up. Just to give you a couple of quick points. What we saw was no surprise in that, some kids maintained, some kids continued to grow, and other kids, fell more behind. What we saw was that on the NWEA, we had about 67% of kids who still made their growth targets. But on math, it was much lower than that. It was, I think, around 35%. So we know we have some work to do around really beefing that up and making sure that students are getting that kind of support. I'm happy to report that I was able to carve out a small piece of RTI for math, which has been a challenge at PES because of the numbers. Most of our RTI support has gone to reading in the past, unless I could pull groups, which I love to do. So when I was able to do that, that's what I was doing. But we've been able to add 2/10 of the math support just because of the way the RTI position worked out this year. Another thing that came out in our data for you is around the Fontes and Pinnell BAS assessment. Really, that data was no surprise that our kids were kept reading through the pandemic, and their accuracy rates were good, but where they got rusty was really around that literary language, around being able to talk about an author's purpose, about being able to retell accurately, and some of those social reading activities that they do every day in school that they might not do at home when they're just picking up a favorite book. So, so we made sure when we looked at that data that that it wasn't something that was going to hold kids back. That we looked at, you know, what could they read, and then how could we support them on sort of building those talk muscles back? Because it was interesting that BAS data was in reading was much lower than the data on the NWEA, and so we looked at that as well. The other goal that we've set this year is an equity and inclusion goal, and we're very lucky that one of the resources that we've been afforded, because we're an affiliate to Teachers College, is they've put many of their professional development opportunities online. So we attended with over 5,000 people from around the globe their Saturday reunion day, where they had different pieces. A number of us are part of a Wednesday night supper club, unless there's a board meeting, of course. And equity is a strand that they are doing through that. And they've been very thoughtful. They've brought in Goldie Muhammad. They've brought in, they have Sonia Cherry is their person that's sort of leading that. So the work that they're doing is really around helping to see how some of the best practices can be infused in the instruction that you're doing. But what we really look at the equity and inclusion goal this year as a listening and learning year. We're looking forward to the audit and finding out what we can learn from that. Our specialists and our support staff are have formed an equity committee, and they're really doing some of the leadership work around that. And then we've scheduled some staff meeting time where they can kind of bring some of those insights to us. So that's kind of where we are with that goal. So I'll take a breath and take any questions that you have.
Vali.
Thank you, Lisa. That was a very upbeat and optimistic and just cheerful report, and I love that. Just wanted to ask, when the teachers transitioned from the hybrid into green, how much work did it take to readjust the curriculum to having done all the condensation for the classes so they could repeat the lesson twice and then move on to a new lesson, to just the regular way we used to teach? They are actually finding it a relief. So for the hybrid kids who are coming tomorrow, the next time their teacher will see them is next Thursday. So those teachers are having to create work from tomorrow until Thursday. So I would say, that our teachers were very relieved that they were able to get, all students back. One of the things that, we found was, like I said, it was not that everyone universally lost ground. So we have kids that are all over the place. Being able to be back in 5 days is giving the teachers sort of that ability to sort of take a breath and feel like they can be responsive and have the two parts of the curriculum around, here's what we're all doing, and then with our workshop, here's what our small groups and individuals are getting, so that everybody's getting what they need. So I will tell you, at least 4 teachers were in this weekend just kind of looking at their space and making sure that it was the way they wanted it. But I had sent a strong message in August, let's set up for green, and so that we're ready. So there was less to do around that, and like you said, more to do around thinking about what they sort of pick up with the curriculum.
And we are trying to stay optimistic. You know, what I've said to the teachers is, and you'll notice in my goals, they're all growth goals, because wherever the kids are is just fine. Like, and what teachers need to do is be in the moment with kids. That's why we're really going to spend time looking at student work, because, you know, it's not going to do anyone any good for them to feel like, you know, push, 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 if that's not what the kids need. It really needs to be a responsive curriculum so that everyone gets what they need.
Hi, Beth.
Oh, it's supposed to be her.
It's okay. You're used to calling
I
on
know.
people, right? No, I just wanted to say thank you for all the hard work and all the work that you've done around creating the care team and having that as a resource for families that are in trouble. So I'm really appreciative of that work.
And
So
it would be a different group if you walked through the hallways compared
I'm
to where your
sure-
kids were there. I
I'm
think
sure
there are
it
two of
would.
us that are left since since Emma left.
just two? Oh, that's right.
Miss
you-
Crossman and
yeah.
me.
No, Allie. Allie
Oh,
too.
Allie. Yeah. So. But I mean, it is a good group. You know, I would say that's one of the advantages we feel in Pownell is being part of the RSU, is that the hiring process, I feel like, is really strong, because the district has a reputation of, you know, really valuing professional development, really supporting teachers, and, you know, so while the staff is new, you know, I would say they are, you know, they're fantastic, and I had a Zoom meeting, just an open question and answer Zoom for parents last night, and I heard, you know, just how in it for kids they are and how great they are as communicators, and, you know, that it was, you know, a love fest around the support that the teachers had. They really missed being with kids, and so being able to be in it. One thing I forgot to mention is I do see a big part of my job as taking care of them. You know, I think that, you know, I added a staff goal under our social emotional. You know, it's that analogy that when you're on the plane, the adult puts their mask on first before putting it on the child. And, you know, I see it as very important as an administrator to make sure that those wellness activities are built in to what we do, so that teachers are getting that rejuvenation that they need, so that when they're with kids, they have that positive energy. You know, so in the middle of the PLD day, you know, took a hike to the waterfall behind the school as just, you know, sort of a little jaunt. And I know that happened in a lot of the other schools as well. But, you know, I couldn't look at the social emotional components without really thinking about the teachers. Because they're having to think about everything they do, right? And so keeping them healthy and engaged and feeling supported is, you know, I think one of my most important jobs, so that they can do their job well.
Maddie.
Lisa, thank you so much. I so appreciate what you just said about teacher mental wellness. We're starting to read the results of the teacher survey that went out, and I haven't gotten to Durham schools yet. Not Durham. I haven't gotten to Pownell yet. Sorry. But that's certainly a theme that we're seeing. So I'm sure that your staff very much appreciate that caretaking. And I think another sign of that is what you said about this first year in the equity and inclusion work. I very much appreciate that you're framing this first year as a listening and learning year. I think it's so important that we take our time, all of us, to do this really well and thoughtfully, so that we can truly, if there's culture shifting that needs to happen, which likely there is for most of us, that can really happen well. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thanks. Grace Lynn was the children's author that was the keynote at the recent Teachers College reunion, and she talked about what it felt like to be the only Asian American in Utica, New York, as she was growing up. And it really rang true for me, because there are many of our classes where there may be one person of color, and basically her message was around how damaging the colorblind practices of were. She told a story about a boy in her class who had tried to say she answered a question because she was Chinese, and the teacher sort of shut it down and didn't address it. And when there was something on a recent Facebook around Utica closing their doors to refugees, that same student, now an adult, posted something and said, "Good riddance, keep them," and I mean, that really hit home for me around our responsibility to help all students to know, and to appreciate everyone. So, yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay.
Okay, so 9C is the capital improvement plan, but we are going to defer that until next week. And we will move on to 10, board comments and committee reports, and we'll start with the board information exchange and agenda requests. I'm gonna go with Maura first, just because we just...
So I just wanted to make the board and Dr. Foley aware of a substantial new development that's been proposed in Freeport, and there will be a Freeport Town Planning Committee meeting next Wednesday. It is during our board meeting, so that's a challenge, but this is in addition to the one that's already been approved at Hunter Road and Desert Road. So it is significantly bigger than I was aware of, and I was wondering if the board either would like to discuss taking the initiative to either reach out to the planning committee, provide some information, weigh in on the size of the project. I know we're undertaking work later this year, right? We have a work session, I can't remember, to look at school enrollment trends, right, and capacity. So I just wanted to put that out there and make sure everyone was aware of it.
Still Maddie, yeah? Okay.
So I realized that and I'm so appreciative of the work that went into putting the teacher survey out there, but we failed to consider when we would talk about the feedback that we're reviewing. And I think that would be a real failure on our part to just get the data and not have a chance to publicly address what we're hearing from teachers. I know if I was on the staff, I would feel really demoralized by that, by being asked my opinion and then not hearing it discussed or if anything would be done about it. So I did want to request that we have a chance to discuss the feedback that we've received from teachers sooner rather than later. And as part of that conversation, I would love to see sort of a definition about what synchronous learning can be. I'm concerned that it seems like parents, teachers, some of us have sort of pre-decided what synchronous learning means. And I think from what I'm learning is that it can mean a number of different things. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to hear what that is. It doesn't need to be a long session, but I'd be really interested to hear a variety of perspectives on what that can mean, because I think we may be significantly raising the anxiety level by talking about synchronous learning as though it is a single set of expectations. That's my first request, and my second request is I'd love to see just some simple data on the frontline screening tool, how successful that is in terms of what percentage of families we're hearing from and who we're not hearing from and what we're doing about that.
I've seen less email follow-ups, like asking people to fill it out. So I'm hoping that means that more people are doing it, getting into that routine. But Jen.
I would just like to to go on what Maddie said, and how she talked about synchronous learning. That's something that I've really noticed too. Is we talked a bit about already starting to look through some of the teacher surveys, and the synchronous learning expectation from teachers versus parents versus what we know about it. I think that is a conversation that we really need to have.
Beth?
I'll just third that, because I'm really glad that Maddie brought that up, because it's something that I just hadn't put words to, but was feeling very like this is disjointed and I'm not exactly sure. And then having my understanding of synchronous, and then Valley's, last time was like, oh no, that's not what that is. And so, I'm really glad, I think that we should discuss that as well.
Dwight?
I also want to comment on the feedback we received from teachers. And I want the teachers who are watching to know that I have read them. I think your comments were incredibly thoughtful and thorough, and it took a lot of time to do it. And I'm glad that Maddie brought it up, and I know we will get that on the agenda, but rest assured, we are looking at it, and even though we may not be talking about it tonight, it's on our minds. And thank you for what you're doing.
Jeremy?
And just to wrap up with what Maura started the discussion about, with this new housing development, if as proposed it goes through, it could increase the population of Freeport by 20%. So you're looking at potentially 2,000 new residents. So the impact on the schools obviously would be a portion of that too. So I hope we can study the issue and see if we want to take any sort of stance on it in the future. Thank you.
Valley?
Yeah, I wanted to echo what you both said about following up on the teacher survey, and also in light of the fact that we're changing teaching model as we go, how those changes impact the planning load for the teachers. So I was really glad to hear Lisa said when we moved to green, that was a relief for the teachers. So I really would like to have a discussion, a conversation about what other ways we can provide the teachers so that they can also have a sense of relief that maybe the way they teach, even though it may not be going to full green or full red, even within a hybrid, there are ways to provide opportunities for a little relief. I also want to second that comment about the self-screening, and wanted to hear from the administrators what creative ideas they have to follow up on parents and students who still don't fill it out, and what ways they have to encourage everyone to fulfill the requirement to fill it out before they come to school. And as far as substitute teachers, we've discussed at length the fact that they're in there's a shortage, a great shortage for teachers. And we were wondering at our house if it would be possible, if we do get a second round of CARES Act funding, or whatever it is that the next package is called, consider devoting some of that money to maybe try out a full-time sub funded with that money to see if that alleviates the situation. Thank you.
Susanna?
I just don't want to be left out. But no, I want to echo everything that's been said, whether I'm sixthing or seventhing it by now. But with the teacher survey, I know at the strategic committee meeting, strategic communications, and we put that together, and we didn't really establish what the protocol was for follow through, and except that we wanted everybody on the board to have that data. And so it is anonymous in that regard, but we wanted it so that we could all use that to take it forward. So I think we just need to clarify how we're using that data, whether we're tracking information so that if we make a change, Pownell's made the change to green, if we make significant changes in teaching, we can follow up with some of these same questions perhaps to know whether things have improved or been more challenging. And so just want that continuity. Strategic the committee has a little bit more information from the survey. And so whether we can be, I just think we need to keep that communication going and see how we can look at individual schools perhaps. And we're not meeting again until January. So just like to know sort of what, obviously this can't wait till January. So just like to have some clarification on that. And then everything else that people have said, got that again, so.
Dwight?
Thanks, Susanna. The question I have is, how do we as a board want to address the concerns and the issues and the ideas that we received in this feedback? Is this the time to perhaps do some brainstorming about how that might get put on an agenda?
Well, I mean, I think we can find a spot to put it on an agenda. But I think, if folks have some ideas on, what those conversations, the protocol on how we're going to, tackle, it's a lot of data, and very open-ended, right? Unlike ones where we have, some sort of scale to say, hey, we gave the same test again, and it went from a 3 to a 4, or a 5 to a 2, or, I think it would be difficult, other than, sort of quantitatively saying, well, the theme seems better than it was before. How we're going to address the concerns, and not lose the benefits that we saw in there, because there was obviously columns about, what's challenging, but what's working well. Like, let's not lose those things in our goal to remedy some of the other things. But I don't know. I mean, does the board have thoughts on how to tackle that? Jen?
From what I've already started looking at, I think people will find that there are some very significant themes that continue to arise. Even though, I looked at it and I was very overwhelmed with the narrative, but when you read through, it's pretty easy to pull some real obvious things that are continually repeated on the pro and con side, to be honest with you. That's kind of how I looked at it. And then there's, the outlier kind of things that you can keep track of. But, I think maybe if we had a goal for everyone to just get through it, first of all, because I think that's time consuming. Maddie and I talked about, the time, but just a commitment to getting through it, and to come up with maybe what the pros and cons, what they found as being the common themes coming from each different question.
Valerie?
Ideally, I would like to see each administrator of each building receive his or her share for that particular school or department. And I would love to hear from them. What do they plan to do with this information? What kinds of suggestions they have to basically build up on the good, positive things and try to address the things that need, some attention. I think they're the best equipped people to tell us how we can not just learn about what's going on, but what to do about it.
Susanna?
Yeah, seconding on Volley there, but I think when I said earlier that those of us on the committee have a little bit more information, and by that what I meant is that we know the building, everything is still anonymous, but data, there were questions about what school or department people are working in, and then a group with which you're working closely. So we know which comments came from, say, teachers at Pownell versus somebody who is working not necessarily directly with students, custodial staff, or what aspects. So getting those subgroupings and saying, this area is working really well or having these challenges, this other group is having some other things, and that might help these patterns emerge. Whereas the rest of the board, you have all of that data, but it's harder to synthesize if challenges are coming from particular areas as much. So.
Dwight?
I would agree with what Jen observed earlier, and I think there are some common threads. I'm sure Becky recognizes them. Would it be at all helpful if we, having the opportunity to review it, would forward what we think are the key questions to the administrative staff, and maybe highlight what we think are what we think might be the most important ones, and then give the administrators an opportunity to respond either by school or through Becky. Would that be helpful?
I think that would, because, I mean, the survey was done to get, for the board, so I think it would be good for the board to then, like, respond in some way with what they want to do with the data that they requested. So I like your suggestion, Dwight.
Maura?
I think I would really appreciate, going off of what Susanna said, having some idea from the Strategic Communications Committee, or if that committee could do some work to identify those specific areas. If there are patterns emerging from where certain comments are coming from, because I think the response rate on this was like 37%, right? So I'm thinking about that, then I'm wondering about the rest of the teachers. And you know, there were some respondents who had positive things to say. I'm very concerned about the teachers who said they were burned out and really overwhelmed. That's very concerning to me, so I think it would be really valuable if you are able to do that work in strategic communications, or need a few board members who can do that work to sift through the data. I think that would be really helpful for me as a board member, and maybe, I don't know for that, if it would be for the admin too, but.
Jen?
I guess I'm kind of confused on that, because we did have the schools identified in what we got. So I guess I'm not sure.
But not the department. So you didn't know if they were an ed tech or a nutrition person or a bus driver or a teacher.
I mean, I honestly, I think you can figure it out when you're reading the comments, but that's just, I mean, and I think sometimes how kind of deep are you going to go with that? But I think it's a lot of information just to organize it by school.
So does the board feel like they have the ability, you know, before our next board meeting, to come back with, you know, what you saw as the major themes, like 3 major themes that you see coming out of the comments? And then we can have a discussion, you know, did we all see the same 3 themes? Yeah.
Given that our next board meeting is in a week,
Mm-hmm.
and I love the suggestion that we give the building principals a chance to respond. We'd need to do that in short order to give them time to see the themes that we have questions about, if we're going to address this at our next board meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking that this might be a 2-step process. We have that conversation about what we saw as the main themes, and then that we can, you know, come to some consensus on, that we then say, hey, this is what we're reading out of this. And obviously, we can certainly share the raw data with them as well. But, this is what we're seeing. They've already gotten it. So this is what we're seeing, how, you know, and then ask them to come back with some strategies, or, you know, what we'd like them to be addressing, as opposed to, I think it would be, I don't think we could get it done in 7 days. To have all of us review it, get them the feedback, and have them respond. I think that would be a bit much. So does that sound like a plan? Are people comfortable with that? So the expectation is at our next board meeting, we'll have something on that agenda for this discussion, and the expectation for the board members is that we've reviewed that data and can come with your top 3 themes from the data. Great. And then the development piece, we heard from a couple of folks on that. It sounds like it's going to the planning board for zoning requests is what's going next week. So I don't know what, what kind of timeline that puts on us if we, as a board, decided to say, hey, guys, make sure you're thinking about the schools. I think it's probably a pretty easy agreement that we can certainly send something in, reminding them of capacity issues when you're considering something of that scale and scope, and offer our assistance to provide any information that might be helpful to the town when they're trying to determine something like that. If we've got if we know our capacity and, percentage capacity at our schools, that might be helpful information for them to have. I'm not sure we're going to go do a feasibility study on their behalf. They're welcome to do that, but anything we have, we can certainly share. So.
Yeah, I think it would be important for them to understand what we currently have for capacity, and then they can fund a demographic study and extrapolate how that will impact the schools. But I think it's very important that they have the information that we currently hold so that they can consider it when they make their decision.
Yeah. So are we thinking this is a letter we want in their hands before next week? Do we think that that's critical for next week's meeting? I don't know sort of the timeline on that.
I think at the very least offering that information and basically saying that we are a resource to them, and please feel free to reach out as you work through the process and prior to making that decision. I don't think any decisions will be made next week.
Perfect. Okay, so maybe we'll sort of approach that one similar to how we did the letter for the arts and the music. We can write it and just sort of by consensus send it around, make sure people don't see any major glaring issues, and if we're okay with it, we'll make sure that they have it by next Wednesday's meeting. Okay. I'll put that on my to-do list. All right. I think that might have been the longest board information exchange and agenda requests on record. But I did want to just remind folks, Friday and Saturday is the MSMA. I think you mentioned it in yours as well, but I'm sure everybody who's signed up has been getting the emails about how to get into that event, so hopefully it's a good one. And good luck, Maura, in the delegate assembly and in your election. Big day for Maura. Okay, so we will move on to the Finance Committee. Our new chair, Jeremy.
I'm over here for the people at home. So we've just had the one Finance Committee meeting since the last update. We held that one via Zoom, but going forward, we're going to try to meet in person in a conference room here, because getting from home to here very quickly very much cut down on our meeting time. So we'll be meeting in person going forward, following social distancing, of course. We are very much happy to be working with Rick as the new finance director. He's certainly drinking from the fire hose daily, although he did say that each day is better than the prior one. So he's definitely getting his feet wet and seems to be enjoying the uniqueness, I believe is how he referred to our books. So in terms of nothing wrong, it's just a little different than he's seen before. And one thing that he is really hoping for, and we discussed a little bit at the committee, was replacing the current financial reporting software suite with a newer, upgraded suite from the same vendor. So he's obtaining quotes on that, and it does have some different modules that might be able to replace some other software that the district uses. So he is looking into that, and it certainly seemed like a good idea when he showed us how much clearer the reporting could be. As he talked, he's been breaking out some of the cost centers and such into different buckets, so it's a little easier to understand how it looks. I think going forward, we'll have clearer reporting out of that. We spent a fair amount of time talking about the nutrition debt and deficit, like we have talked about in the past also. First of all, I just want to give kudos to Erin for the work that she's done, both in increased collections work, in, as my kids will certainly attest, into better food that more kids want to purchase, and which helps on the revenue income side. But there still is a deficit there annually, and there still is a debt there from the past. So pending the results of the audit, there'll be a formal request to use some of the undesignated fund balance to fill whatever debt is remaining to try and get us back to 2-0, as the state actually does technically require us to get back to. So I thought that made a lot of sense, and feel very strongly about the good work that Erin and Rick are doing on the finance/food front for that. And the only other thing that was a topic was Dennis talked about some additional HVAC work to happen at the Moore Street School, but want to very much stress that the work was in the works to be done before any of the pandemic issues came up. So what the work that he's getting requests for quotes would be around is upgrading, just because the systems simply are aging and need replacement, and there's quite a bit of literal manual work that has to be done right now on a weekly basis to update dampers and move levers to make sure everything's working properly and do monitoring. So a lot of the work that will be done will automate a lot of that, so we don't have to have people going in and fussing with levers and taking readings and stuff. So that should be a longer term cost savings, as well as just having more reliable equipment for Moore Street. So that was that, but happy to take any other questions.
Valley.
And Jeremy, ballpark, how much is the debt for nutrition?
That's to be determined based on the audit.
Right. But any idea? Is it 50,000? Is it
No,
400,000?
It's a.
I
it's
had
over
142 in my head.
100,000. I have what?
I had 142 in my head.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other question, there's a line here that says that Tyler Technologies is providing some upgrade to the technology to correct a long-standing dissatisfaction of the performance of the financial management. Could you describe who's dissatisfied and what causes the dissatisfaction?
I think I'll look to Becky on that. Just he wasn't, I don't know about the word long-standing, but he certainly is not happy with it, and I'm not sure if Michelle had issues with it before.
I think part of the issue, one of the concerns, and you guys may recall going back all the way back to Kelly, in the reports we got, the whole, I don't know why I'm getting feedback, the whole issue with the encumbrances, and we weren't able to load them all, and they weren't able to encumber salaries, and it seems like they've been doing Band-Aid fixes to that over the years and have gotten a little bit better each time. Frankly, I think Rick has just seen much better systems in place, so he had very little patience for some of the issues that we have just come to recognize as how it was here. So I think we have always had issues with ENCODE from that perspective. Is that fair?
Since I've been here, there have been issues with ENCODE. So when Michelle was on board, she was like, this is kind of an archaic system. And so some of you may remember we put money in one of the budgets to upgrade the system. And so we thought we were moving to Munis because that's what was the system. And we got, I don't know, maybe halfway through the training, and Michelle pulled the plug on that, saying this is really cumbersome. And Munis is really more for like municipal. I mean, the districts that have it, the RSUs that have it, none of them like it. And so then Michelle felt like she'd learn kind of workarounds with ENCODE. So she said, let's stay with ENCODE. And so we stayed with ENCODE, but they gave us like kind of a credit of just saying, okay, well, if you decide to move to this, or you want to purchase this piece of ENCODE to upgrade, you can do that. So then Ann came on board, and she had the same assessment Michelle had. This is horrible, right? And so she was at the time trying to convince me to move to e-finance, because that was something she was familiar with. And so the theme has been the same, but one of the things I think near Ann's, the end of her tenure, was I was to the point of, we're not going to use something that a lot of other districts aren't using, because you need that, you need to be able to reach out and say, hey, how are you doing this? And so then Rick came on board, and you could see he has the same assessment. So that's the long-standing. Tyler now has a new product called, I think it's Infinite Vision, and that is being used by MSMA and other districts, and I think we feel fairly confident that this is the the program that we need to get all of our systems to merge better.
Any other questions? Beth?
I was just going to add just one thing that I remembered Rick saying was that he would be able, with the new software, to be able to draw data very easily. Like, say we want to know, you know, this report or that report of what the district's spending, he would easily be able to get it versus, you know, going to different places and piecing things together. So that was, for me, a really big thing that we can, you know, if we have that access to that information, then we can make, you know, better decisions there.
And will we have a trial period so they can see how they like it before they decide to pay the full amount and keep it? 'Cause sounds like some of the other programs that they tried, they thought they would work, but they ended up not being what they were after.
Our plan is right now is just to go with it. I think, and even when Rick said we're ready to move towards that, I think that we cannot even, we're in the queue now, but we probably won't be implementing till September or October. So that there are that many districts, I think, ahead of us.
And I think one of the things we heard in the search for the director of finances, we heard this specific software mentioned several times as a really solid alternative. So we got some unsolicited feedback on it from people other than the people trying to sell it to us. So.
Well, and if there are other districts that are already implementing it, reaching out to them and seeing how they like it, maybe a good thing. By September, we'll know for sure if we want it or not.
Right. Okay. Next for our committee reports is strategic communications.
Okay. We talked about surveys. We looked at the student exit survey. 79 of those surveys, or 79 students have left, and I think it was 40 some surveys we have. And we have the data, and the committee was given an assignment, homework, to go home and look at all of that and see if we could look at that raw data and come up with some coding that we could use when we all got all back together again at our next meeting in January. And the surveys combines 1819 and 1920, and that when the final report is written about these comments, it will include something about COVID, since that, you know, might have been a factor in some of the students leaving. We are not giving out the satisfaction survey this year because of COVID. The next parent one will go out in 21-22, and the next staff one will go out in 22-23. And then we kind of responded to a suggestion from the board to look at the teacher survey, which we talked about, and you all know that it really basically was pretty open-ended. What's gone well, what hasn't, what are the challenges have been, and some ideas about improvement. And as you all know, we have that raw data back. We talked about it. One of the other things that was there at the meeting that we didn't get to, that we said we'd work on next time, we have a list of the parent and community communication, both district-wide and school-wide, and we'll be looking at that at our next meeting. And that's pretty much it.
Maddie.
Thanks, Candy. I did just have the question. It seemed like the survey was out for a really short amount of time, and I'm just wondering, is that standard practice when we send out a survey? Because I just hope we don't have folks out there that wanted to respond but didn't get a chance to.
No, I think that's pretty, you know, I think it was 8 or 9 days that it was out there, like over 2 weekends and.
I lost a week in there somewhere.
Or whatever, yeah, I think that is pretty standard.
Susanna.
I just have a quick follow-up question from Maddie, and that's, I was wondering also earlier too, have we heard from any teachers or staff who missed the opportunity to fill in the survey but have feedback for us?
No, I haven't, I haven't heard anybody say, oh my gosh, I forgot to do it. Can I, send that in?
Okay, then we will move on to policy.
Okay. We looked at several policies that you'll see in the notes there where there were no substantive changes, and the ones that Cynthia will talk to you about tonight are being rescinded because they are simply forms. They're not actually policies. But Cynthia we had lists. Apparently, I think this is the right number, that we have 239 policies. 239 policies. And they need to be reviewed kind of on a 5-year cycle, so that we have our list for what we looked at in 1920 and the list that we have to finish up in now in 2021, which is a hefty list anyway, but we'll get it done. We also are being asked to, suggested that we look at the wellness policy again, which we will do. That actually wouldn't be coming up yet, but people asked us to look at it, so we're going to. And the other thing is the discussion about the policies having to do with Title IX and the sexual harassment business. We will be looking at that in December and January, doing some research and coming back to the board. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I would suggest that when you have the dates on those, if you want to share them, because I know some of the
dates on
the meetings for the Title IX, just because
Okay.
I think some folks are interested in those.
Okay.
Want to let the board know. And then we'll move into policy since Cynthia's there and ready.
Hello, good evening. So all I have, as Candy just pointed out, are 4 forms that we would like to rescind, as we've been doing over the last few years. Anything that's just a form that supports a policy, we've rescinded and pushed it over to the right. It would stay on the policy page under the procedures heading. And what we're looking to do, just to clarify from your minutes, what we're looking to do once they're rescinded is combine them, because it's redundant information on all 4, and we put all of the information on one with a few extra things to check which area that they're looking to be part of. So that's it. This is for the private school participation in either co-curricular or athletic. So these are just the forms that we would be asking to rescind.
So do we have, I don't know if I lost there's my
I
agenda.
should have asked for the motion. Maybe.
Yes, so do we have a motion for consideration and approval of, to rescind the following policies, JJIAA E1 through 4? Valerie, second.
Yeah.
Susanna? Okay, discussion, Maura?
Thank you, Cynthia and Policy Committee, for all your work. Given the amount that you have on your plate, I hesitate to suggest doing anything since these are being rescinded, but I was wondering if the board would want to consider having a policy that simply states that private school students can apply to participate in these activities.
Oh, we do have a
we do?
policy. Yes.
Oh, there is
We
a
did.
separate
I'm
one.
sorry. I
Okay.
should have clarified that. So we do have the policy, and we didn't make any changes to it. That's why it's not in front of you tonight. The only thing we did was we changed like a his, her to a their, and then RSU number 5, that kind of thing. But we didn't make any substantive changes to it.
Thank you, I missed that. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
I thought we had rescinded the policy first too, so what is wrong with my microphone? Put it over there. It's interesting because Keith, what's wrong with my microphone? It's like, do you hear the feedback? No? Nope. Okay, we'll leave it right there. I'm not gonna move. Yeah, right. It's interesting. I don't get a lot of feedback from community members around our policies, around those sort of things. This is one that I've heard from actually a couple of different people. And I don't know if it's around the policy and how it's written, or if it's around the policy and how we implement it. I'm curious if there was any discussion at the policy committee about this one specifically, because my understanding of the policy is that if we have a student who lives in RSU 5
Right.
and attends a private school that does not offer activity, co-curricular, sport, whatever it might be, they can join the RSU 5 group to participate. And which is fantastic because we have a lot of private schools around. So we've got some kids that do take advantage of that. But my understanding, particularly for a sport, is that if you are from a private school and attending, you can, if there's more than one team, so let's take girls soccer, there's 3 teams. If you are a senior and you're going to, I don't know, a school that doesn't have a girls soccer team, you could never be on the varsity team because we would never displace a kid who goes to Freeport High School, even if, so you could be on the first team, I guess. But that's my understanding of the how it's being implemented. So I don't know if it's how it's written or if that's how.
So the policy itself, I think I can answer that. The policy itself does not have that specificity in it. It makes a reference to, let's see if I can get right there. I think our policy is broad enough that it doesn't, it might be our implementation process that we need to look at.
Okay.
But the policy is written broad enough that it doesn't imply
It doesn't say that.
No,
Okay.
it does not.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Then I wouldn't suggest a change to the policy.
That-
Jeremy.
That may well be an MPA rule that doesn't allow varsity participation unless you're at the school. Because they're like in hockey, you can play up to JV for theoretically any school you want, but then for varsity, it has to be for the school you're at. So.
Yeah, although what Michelle may be referring to, and this happens at the middle school too, where students from private schools are only allowed to join the team if there is room. So I don't know what the policy
This does
says,
say
but that is how
capacity.
it's implemented. Is that what the policy
This
says?
does say capacity, but it
Okay.
doesn't, yeah, but that's it. It doesn't have any other detail around
And I
if you're a
could al-
senior
yeah.
or not.
Yeah, I mean, I could almost get on board with a capacity question, right? I mean, we provide it for the kid, as many kids as we can. I could certainly see not moving a kid who goes to school here so that they couldn't participate, right? That's sort of counterproductive. But I was just, my understanding of the implementation of how they get placed. But the MPA idea is an interesting one. I don't know if that's the case or not. So, so anyway, I was just curious because I had heard because kids from charter schools the same way, right? Like,
yes,
they participate as well.
Yep.
So, okay, that was all I had on that one. Any other comments or questions on rescinding these, guys? All those in favor? None opposed. Great. Thank you. Okay, unfinished business. First up is the consideration and approval. Do we have a motion for consideration and approval to appoint the members to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee? Susanna, second. Maddie, thank you. Discussion. So you guys have the list in your packets.
I just wanted to kind of prep it. So in that, on the yellow sheet are the people that we're recommending to you for the DEI committee. Mara and Michelle met with me to review all of the letters received, and we want to thank the people for their interest in serving on this very important committee. We do not, in consultation with MAEC, the company that we are working with, we don't want to go over 14 members. This is the maximum that they recommend having. So as we reviewed the letters, we had a discussion amongst the 3 of us, and we decided it was better to have more community and parents involved and less administrators. So you will see on that yellow sheet that we eliminated. We had first talked about having 2 building administrators, and we reduced that to 1 so that we could add another community member. And our first meeting will be in December, when we hope to have some of the information from the audit And I just wanted to take this moment to kind of update the community on what we've been doing since school has started around that. We do have 10 staff also enrolled while we're waiting for the audit to take place in the Cultural Competence Institute. And that group consists of 8 administrators and 2 staff members. And so once a month, we attend a Zoom event with 290 other educators from across the state to listen to Lawrence Alexander, and we have breakout rooms for a discussion around just what's going on in our individual districts. Our RSU 5 group of 10, we also meet outside of that time to talk about the readings that we have and how this learning can be applied to RSU 5. And as you've been also hearing, each school is having an equity goal this year, and you've heard now from 4 of our principals, and you'll be hearing from the other 2 in upcoming board meetings. We're also taking the learning from the CCI group to the broader administrative team. And so we'll be beginning those discussions in, I think, a week at our next administrative team meeting on November the 10th. And be talking about that so that that learning can be spread across all departments. Cynthia has been in regular communication with the MAEC around the equity audit, and she's in the middle of setting up 10 to 12 focus groups that we anticipate being completed by November the 10th. We've had great interest from the parents and community members. We're doing another shout out to the high school students because right now there hasn't been a lot of interest from the students, so we're going to give that another try. We've had good response from our middle school students. The questions that will be asked at that forum, Cynthia and I we're not privy to that. They'll be creating that on their own and doing those groups. Cynthia's also sent them the appropriate policies for their review. And then we have also reached out to Melissa Huey about the policy question that came up at our board retreat about the Confederate flag. She came to the policy meeting on September the 11th, and she recommended that this not be placed in policy because that's meant to be broad, but would be more appropriate for procedures and handbooks. She explained that she believed that there would be enough case law to restrict its use in RSU 5, with the understanding that, there's no guaranteed, and if there was a lawsuit, we're not sure how that would go. But the policy committee understood that and decided to still go forward to not allow students to wear or use the symbol of the Confederate flag. So on September 15th, after that policy meeting, we had a discussion of that at the administrative team meeting and made sure that all principals knew what this new requirement was, and that they would take that as an opportunity if there was a student that wore a t-shirt or something with the Confederate flag, it would be handled like other t-shirts with like a drug or alcohol symbol on them, and that they would be asked to change that clothing. And so they also asked that we have common language that would go into each of the handbooks. So Cynthia started looking for other policies, not policies, just other language in other handbooks kind of across the United States that have that referenced. And she has developed something that has now been sent back to Melissa Huey, who was the one that was consulting us, to have them review it and do any tweaks. And then as soon as that's done, we've reached out to her within the past week, and we just haven't heard back. I'm sure we will within the next few days, and at that time, I'll share with the board during a board update what that language will be, and then we'll put that into our handbooks. And so I just wanted to provide that brief update before I ask you to vote to approve the members of our newly formed DEI committee.
Any other questions, comments? Valerie?
Quick question. I wasn't familiar with the Tri-Town Equity and Inclusion Committee. Is that a new organization? Have they been around for a while? Who are they? Because we have a member here that wrote a letter saying basically there's a spot that I'm supposed to fill, but compared to the other letters, it didn't seem to be that enthusiastic. So I was wondering why we are giving a spot to that organization and who that organization is.
So, do you have more info on the money? Yeah.
This is a committee that was formed after we had the June event, and we as a board have received some emails from this member and another member whose name I'm forgetting. So when we first talked about forming this committee, I raised that question. I don't know if it was at a meeting. It might have been just in an email where I actually asked that we make sure to have a spot for that committee, because they're doing similar work in the community, and it seemed to make sense that there would be a liaison, so that would be working hand in hand.
Yep, that's pretty much it. Yeah. Mara?
I just wanted to thank all the community members and teachers who applied. I don't want to speak for Becky and Michelle, but I found it very difficult to choose between them. We have a number of really impressive people in our community and on our staff with a lot of knowledge of this issue. And thank you for, I mean, I haven't been on the board when we formed a lot of new committees, but I thought we had a good number of applicants. So thank you for applying.
Yeah, I think the fact that Becky brought us in, which is atypical to start with, because there was a lot of really great, great information, and I will echo Mara's thanks for everyone who took the time to put together those letters. And I will, you know, I'll just throw out there that this is the starting point. So there is going to be room for every person who's interested in getting involved in this work in our district to have a place at the table. So stay tuned. Hopefully those folks are also going to be involved in those forums. And, you know, there's, you know, particularly our teachers that reached out that we weren't able to accommodate all the spots. You know, the work in the schools is just, this is just the start. So I'm sure we'll be able to put all of your good work to into play. So, Patty.
Just wanted to share that I sent a question to the three of you in the center of the room yesterday, because I did notice that we have one building administrator and we'd made room for two, and obviously we have 4 community members when we'd made room for 3. So I was wondering about that, and then Becky and I had a good conversation about it yesterday, and Maura also followed up with me. And I'm satisfied with that answer. My initial concern was that we're creating something where some really meaningful conversations might happen, and I wanted to make sure that there is enough of an audience on the school side. And to my mind, our building principals are the most boots on the ground people dealing with diversity and equity issues among students and staff. So I was a little concerned that it was just one person, but I feel there was a concern on their part that it might be too heavily weighted in the other direction, which makes sense. We want balance of community and district representation. So I just requested, and I have faith that this will happen, but that these substantive conversations that happen at this committee, that they will be shared with the building admins as well. And of course, it's a tough call to even consider adding more things to our principals' plates right now, but I feel assured, so thank you.
Okay, without any other hands up, we have a motion and a second, so all those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. All right, so back to Cynthia, I think, for the discussion of the calendar.
Good evening again. Normally, I haven't brought, when we had the initial discussion last year, I haven't brought a second calendar draft to you as quickly. But the reason I did is because once we had our discussion here, I plugged those pieces into a draft calendar and then brought it to the administrative team to look at the professional learning days. And so you have in your packets, I believe, the new one. I have the first one in case you want to look at the, okay.
That was the first thing I said was, how is it different?
So the first change is in November. If you look at the PLD day, on the first draft, it was on the 5th, and if you notice on the first draft, it gives you a 4-day week, and then another 4-day week right after it, and that 11th falls on a Thursday, so it was just moved down, so it's Thursday, Friday together. It just seemed to make sense for multiple reasons. So that was the first one. Any questions about that particular one, or any things that you don't like about that move?
That's just a half professional development. It's not like that's not an early release day. That's something different, right?
That's
no kids all day, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, it's one of their 0.5 days. Yeah. And I don't know if did you have your hand up?
My only question was so that's a 3-day week for kids and a 4-day week for teachers, but they have the Thursday off and then go back on Friday?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the teachers would come in for half a day for professional development because, the 11th falls whenever it falls, and
right.
Yeah. But for families, it would be the 2 days in a row.
Yeah, I like it better than you.
Okay. And then the next one, okay, so the next one, let me see. I have my original draft in my office.
January 3rd.
Thank you. Oh, okay. So January 3rd, and I know we had discussion on this last time, so I'm sure we will again. We had moved the March, is it the March? Not the March. Must be the February 18. The February 18th day to January 3rd. And the rationale from the administrators was it was a very productive day. We have Lisa here. I don't know if she has to add anything and wants to add anything to that. But they felt that when the year that we did that, that they came back, the teachers came back refreshed. They started with some professional development, and there was just a lot of energy in the room to get that work done. Whereas when you're doing something on a week before vacation, your mindset is in a little bit of a different space. So that was the rationale to move that to the January 3rd date, and then it's not breaking up any days. It's sort of at the end of that vacation, so it's not like the kids start and then there's another day.
I don't know. I've never. This is not a change for me. I don't like that Monday after. I mean, parents have taken a week and a half off already, and it's sort of expected that people will be back to work that Monday, and I can certainly appreciate. I think from a productivity standpoint of the PLD time, I think I won't disagree. That's probably much better than the day before they go on vacation. But from a parent perspective, I'm not a fan. I don't like that day.
I was expecting. I think the one other thing that I left out, I think that there's 7 days of the holiday this particular year, and sometimes we have more than that. So that was another rationale I think they used as that, right? Like sometimes we have 8 days in there. So this would make it 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8 days of days there. So just putting it out there and wanting your feedback.
I can, oh,
Sorry. Jen, you gotta raise your hand higher. I can't see you over Mara's head.
I just think that with that January day, I mean, I agree with Michelle. That's a rough one, I think, for families, but I also think it's really important to have teachers, you know, excited and on board. So was there no other spot for that? I mean, like another, you know, even going down to like the holiday that's in January, doing like the 18th, Tuesday the 18th as a PLD day, I don't know. Just, I agree. I think that's a very odd, especially since it's a Monday. It's like Monday's the start of the week, vacation's over type of thing. So, yeah. I think I would like to see if there was any other option for that PLD day somewhere else, but I mean, I think we're already starting in August. We have that to contend with parents, and then adding that, I think could be a problem.
Susanna.
I agree with both sides here, but just wondering if February 28th, bumping it to the end of a break where you're still getting that time off for teachers, because I do think that's very important, where the teachers are refreshed, and having it at the end of that vacation, and if that's any better on the parental side.
I think that the idea was to spread them out more, and there's already 1-2 weeks later. So, but to answer your question, can you find another date? If the board directs us to find another date, we absolutely will find another date.
And the other question is is that already out of alignment with the other 2 schools?
So I wanted to do this piece first because I knew January, you know, so a couple of reasons, because of the November 11th, that, and then the January 3rd, I wanted to come here first because if I had brought that there and then come back, I know that probably would have been different, because the year we did it, the other 2 districts did not. So my gut was that they probably wouldn't have again. So I just wanted to bring it to you early on.
So moving it doesn't move us farther out of alignment.
Right, because we usually meet early December, in about 4 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
I keep looking at Valley. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I agree that Monday after vacation, I think it's a tough one for families. And I'm also looking at January, February, March, and I don't know what we're going to do with storm days. So that may not be an issue, but if we continue to have storm days, then I definitely don't want to have PLD days or early release in those 3 months. So I would move it, honestly.
I'm trying to get her attention.
Beth.
Personally, I don't really feel one way or the other. I can see the rationale both ways. I feel like Jen's idea to put it maybe the 18th of January, because it's really close still. It doesn't seem to disrupt too many other things, and it seems pretty spaced. It could be a good compromise.
Yeah, that's where it used to be, and I don't think anyone had an issue with that, except maybe the administrators prefer that one, but I would rather leave it on the 18th.
So I can take that. I'll just take that information that the 3rd is a no, and we'll look at the 18th and perhaps another option, and then I'll bring it to the Brunswick and to 15 and 75, and then come back. Okay.
Maura.
Can I also just suggest the 14th as a possibility? am I looking at the right month? January?
The
Yeah.
14th?
I mean, even though it's before a long weekend, I don't think you quite have the, like, the drain that the day before,
It might
you
be
know, a whole week.
midterms. It might be midterms.
Oh, yeah. I don't
I'm
know.
not sure. I'm not sure exactly if it falls
Is it?
then.
Say that again, Liam?
Also, in general,
I can't hear you. Do you want to come up? I'm just going to invite Lisa up too.
yeah.
Okay. While she's coming up, Liam, do you know when midterms are?
I would like to say they're the week before. No, they're the week
stand away from the
after
side.
Martin Luther King Day or the week before. I can't really recall. I feel like there was always a long weekend before, so we had extra time to study, is what I'm recalling.
The high school doesn't tend to like that band of time because it either is right before midterms or it's right during midterms. So that's usually the problem to adding time at that time.
Okay.
Cynthia, I would say from perspective of parents, end of the week is a lot better. So choosing a Friday is a lot easier for families than a Monday. There's something about a Monday, you just want to get kids going because you need a lot to do. And you can always, compromise on a Friday, but a Monday is a tough one.
Jen?
Can you just refresh my memory on the early release
Well,
days?
that's a nice segue because the Friday that Volley just mentioned, and I was just going to segue to the early release. So if you look at March, on the first draft, we had an early release on March 30th. And on the second draft, we've moved it to the Friday of February 4th.
I was just
And so the early release is the kids come to school for roughly half the day, and then they go home, but staff stays.
and those are different than a PLD.
Yeah.
What is the agenda?
Well, they'll
for
still
the-
have they'll still have
It's a
professional
half day
development.
PLD.
Mhm.
So, wondering if
Often-
you could move the early release, which is on February 4th, somewhere else, and use that as the PLD that we're trying to switch from January. Seems like early releases might be easier. I'm not really sure. My kids are older, so.
So the early release that you're talking about on February.
On February 4th, there's an early release.
Yes, we moved it on first draft from the 30th of March to that date.
Right, so now I'm saying,
Move it again.
maybe move it again, and put a PLD day on the 4th, and then find a new spot for the early release. Maybe even an early release on Friday, January 14th, who knows, I don't know. Just an idea.
Any others? Okay.
There you go.
So what I'll do is, I'll bring those other two to the administrative team, but I won't come back here with them until I've gone to the other two districts.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Cynthia. All right, new business. We have one of the adjustments to the agenda, the snow day discussion. Wow, these are well put together. Go from the calendar to snow days. Did you know it was going to snow today?
I did not know that it was going to snow today. So what I would like is just a consideration of this change. I think, I don't know, it might have been about a year ago that a board member said, would you ever consider doing what Camden is doing with the snow packs? And I'm like, no. But so COVID has definitely changed my thinking around this, because I think that the learning would be far more meaningful than, sending home a snowpack, which is, to me, kind of just means a few worksheets. So I have outlined for you some thoughts that I had about being able to call a remote learning day due to inclement weather, and then it would not be a day that we would be making up, and this would be for days where we have snow or wind or whatever, but not significant power outages, and then we wouldn't need to make up the day at the end of the year. But if there were significant power outages, then we would just call it as a snow day, and that would be, we would handle that the way we've always been handling that. I will say that if there happens to be a snow day this week, if you approve this, we won't be having a remote learning day due to inclement weather, and that's because we are not ready to go. At the pre-K to 5 level, we have had difficulty with just getting all of the machines ordered and in. They've been on back order. Jeff's done a great job of, since he's been on board, just scrambling to see if we could find a different vendor, which he's been successful in doing. And now I think we just received a shipment of about 90 Chromebooks, but now we need to get them all labeled, and we're getting creative as we have been trying to do since COVID hit. And I think that today he was successful in getting some high school students that are going to do it as part of a community service project that they'll be helping out. And then we've just hired another person to just for this, to try to get it, the machines ready and then outsource. But his best thinking today, when I spoke to him, that we're probably 2 weeks away from being ready. Now we're going to try to expedite that, but even if we're successful in that, if there were a snow day this Friday, we would not be ready. And then there's only one bullet that I would, I've received feedback from the administrators on this, and I should have numbered instead of doing the bullet, but if you go down to the 6th bullet, I would like to change that to teachers and ed techs assigned to work in person may work remotely as assigned by their principal supervisor. And then I would like to add days may be made up at the end of the school year. That's really more for the ed techs. But we do have a lot of ed techs in the district, and it was just pointed out that we might not be able to, like on a dime, to be able to find a full day's work for all of our ed tech. So I'd like to change that to May, because in some cases we might just have them do what the food and nutrition people would be doing and be making that up at the end of the year. There may be times when we do have them work remotely, but I just want to make that adjustment to the memo.
So Becky, so as not to create confusion about what teachers are required to do, would you like to just have 2 different bullets, one for
Yes.
teachers, one for ed techs?
That's a great idea.
Okay.
I could do that, so I'll separate it out.
Okay.
Are you looking for anything from us on this? I mean, I see comments and we'll get to those too, but.
Yeah, I think I'd like a motion of just like consideration approval of a remote learning day due to inclement weather protocol.
Do we have said motion? Valley, thank you. Second, Maddie. Okay, Susanna.
Thank you. I was just wondering, in talking about the significant power outages, how that's defined, because there's some areas in the district that have more delicate power systems and other areas where it's much more robust. And just wondering, for students who do go out of power, if it is a small percentage of the district, are those students then counted as absent for the day? What is the makeup? What are they able to do, and just how is that work balanced and the decision there?
I think that would just have to be my call in consultation with Dennis that morning. And looking at the CMP website, they're really good about saying, whatever, the town has 6,000 and 5,000 people are without it. So I think that's what we would have to go on. I think that on any given day, right, that an individual house may be having internet connectivity problems, and so I don't think that the student would necessarily be counted absent, but they would have to, you know, do the work remotely just by accessing probably the Google Classroom. A lot of times assignments are posted, but I think they would possibly miss the synchronous classes.
Well, they might not have access to their Google Classroom if they've got no internet and
Yeah,
power
well,
for the
that's
day.
true, too.
So I'm especially concerned, I mean, I like the idea, but I'm concerned about days when we have wind and you don't know about power outages at 5 a.m. and then by 7, half of the people don't have access, or by noon, so you never know when they're going to lose it throughout the day. So I would just say if it looks like the forecast is windy, then probably do not call a remote learning day, just to make sure that we don't leave people stranded in the middle of the school day.
Beth?
And if there would be some sort of number to call, like if, you know, I don't know if there'd be a way, if it is a remote school day, you know, nobody's at the building, or maybe there is somebody at the building. I don't know how that works. So if, like, say Valley said that we had power, we were starting, and all of a sudden it goes out, like, who, you know, someone to call or some sort of contact, so we don't just feel like they think we're just, you know, goofing off. Or not me, but the students, I should say.
You mean have a number for the students to call for support,
Or just to let them know that they're out of power, so it
notify.
doesn't look like, hey, you know, Liam forgot to log in because.
Oh, yes, yes.
Just because if the
Oh,
power
that-
goes out and then there's nobody at the school,
Oh,
and
yes,
there's
yes.
no,
No,
you know,
I
you
love
can't
that
send an
idea.
email or,
Yes.
you know, something like that. So there's some sort of contact to just have a phone call, let them know what's happening.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And we can talk about that as an administrative team. Like, you know, this is something I really hadn't thought out, so I could take that back to the group.
I think we just give him Ginny's phone number.
Yeah.
My phone's gonna ding. Jeremy?
Just from a equity and access perspective, do we have a good sense of number of students that now don't have any internet access at home? And just curious how many this might impact if we went this route.
I think if it has to be very few, if any. Oh, wait, I'm getting a number in my mind. 10? Thank you, Jeff. And I think, have we tried to provide them with hotspots? We have. Could you go to the mic?
We actually have tried to do that. Unfortunately, where they're living, and it's happens to be out in Pownell, they're having a real hard time getting that signal because of trees, you know, whatever's surrounding their house. And you can just get that thing, it's just a little device, just so high. And I actually went out the other day and I took one of the tablets that has Wi-Fi built in and 4G hotspot, and the minute I got to a certain area, it just went off, it went. So I think that's, you know, unfortunately, location is a problem. Yeah. But from what I understand, there are 9 people that are having issues right now. Yeah.
And the idea.
Do we know if they're all at the elementary level, or is it some of our middle high school students?
I don't know that.
Okay.
Yeah. Not right offhand, but I can find out.
We need to have hotspots from every cell provider, and you'd be like, this one, no, this one, no, that one, maybe.
And that's a good point, actually, because the state is, you know, we've got Verizon and AT&T, and right now those hotspots are provided by Verizon specifically, along with the Galaxy Tab A tablets that we're targeting for the pre-K folks. And you know, Verizon has a really good, I don't want to, you know, propose recommendations, but they have really good tower coverage. And so if you can't get connected with them, it seems to be that's the the issue. AT&T, but right now the state tablets that we have that were provided to us, that wasn't an option of carrier. We had to go with what they had.
And it's also something to keep in mind that, that I assume the thought is this might be something we continue into the future, right? So if we're going to start taking back any of those tablets or taking back any of those hotspots that we're sending out into the world with the kids this year because of COVID and the potential of going red, have we set people up not to have the technology 2 years from now? I don't know, maybe one of the silver linings is we'll stay one-to-one on stuff forever now, but just something to think about down the road.
And also I'll throw in the contract that we had with them was initially for 6 months at no charge to us. The State Department of Education has extended that to 1 year, effective through June of 2021. So I think that was great, and that kind of answers some of your concern for it. The tablets do not belong to us. We are simply utilizing what they've given us. The Galaxy tabs. The iPads do belong to us. Yep.
Susanna.
I'm not certain this is a conversation for now, but among those students who don't currently have internet access, just aware that whether it's Verizon, or Sprint, or AT&T, that not switching companies doesn't necessarily rectify the problem. I know I don't get cell service at my house regardless of who it is.
Right.
And so just wondering, I'd like to know at some point how we're dealing with those students with synchronous learning and with this exchange, because if this is a system, if we're looking to make more synchronous classes, and I know I've mentioned this before, and if we're talking about saying that we have a snow day, but hey, we can still do work, that we're not leaving students out of the equation.
Absolutely.
And so just at some point, I would like to know how those students, and this gets into at what level they are as well, how are they handling with work, and are they able to get to the library? Are they able to get the internet, which maybe they can on a school day, but if it's a snow day, they're probably not going to go sit outside the library to do their work. So at some point I would like some information on that, please.
And I can speak to that briefly, that I know there are a couple individuals who are borrowing neighbors' internet. They have that permission from them, and they are able to hit their Wi-Fi from their house or from their area, and they are doing what they can to try to get it. And some folks, that we have some parents who quite truthfully can't afford the internet costs. It has astronomically gone up. Years ago, there was DSL, dedicated second line. Your phone came in and it split. One part was for your internet, the other part was for your phone. That's changed. And the speeds have required more. And if you're doing DSL, unless you have really at least 30 gigabits or better connection, the chances of you getting a good solid, especially for async, it's just not going to happen well, and it's going to cut out. Similar to the mic issue you're having right now, which we'll figure out. Sorry about that, by the way.
Yeah, and I don't mean to imply that. I mean, everybody from all aspects is doing, everything that can be done.
Right.
I just want to make sure that we are getting what we need.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great point. Thanks.
Jen.
I'm just wondering if we can propose this, the motion can be for this school year, so we can revisit it. I think that, I love doing pilot programs and making this kind of a pilot. I mean, it's going to work this year, obviously, as much as it can because of what we have. But with the questions brought up about, you said a couple years from now, I think if we do it for this year, and then we can revisit it and kind of work out the kinks.
Maddie.
With regard to attendance, perhaps we can borrow some of the things that we learned last spring, which I know were not fun for our attendance secretaries, but maybe we can put some of those protocols into place. And then, I like the idea of piloting this. It may be that a remote snow day is not at all like a remote learning day on a normal weather day, but we'll have to learn that. There's an evolution that has to take place. Maybe, because of considerations like internet access, if there was going to be a summative or whatever, an assessment of any kind, maybe it doesn't happen that day. You know, maybe it's, I hate to say light learning day, but maybe there's some planning and some thought given to making it as accessible as possible on those weather days, as much as we're able to anticipate those.
Valley?
Yeah, I agree that our pilot just for this year, because we're set up with the technology and the tablets and everything else makes sense. Not sure about the future unless we can be absolutely sure that everybody has the technology they need. So I would be in agreement with going forth for this year. I do want to make sure that we don't call snow days more easily because we have this alternative. I just want to make sure that we don't change at all the protocol or the criteria that we have used in the past to call a snow day. That if we do, it will be for exactly the same reasons that we called one last year or the year prior. Thank you.
Yeah, particularly because I think, you know, Maddie's thought that it's going to be a different type of day is probably true. You know, the light learning day is not a bad comparison because, you know, frankly, an extra day in June tends to be a really light learning day. So, you know, anything above what we, you know, the pickup there is solid. So, Beth.
Regarding the access in Pownell, I think my experience living there, the primary problem is Bradbury Mountain, which is not going anywhere. So, what I think, I mean, what really needs to happen is, you know, the companies that provide this need to like really get in there, and we've had that discussion before. So, but anyway, I just wanted to let you know that that's a tricky one there. But yeah, otherwise, I am in support of it definitely for this year.
So, Cynthia, remind me who made the motion?
Yeah.
Valley, would you amend your motion?
I would like to amend the motion to make the motion viable just for this academic year.
And the second was Maddie, and she agrees. So the motion on the floor is to approve the remote learning day for inclement weather for this school year. Any other comments, questions? Okay, all those in favor? None opposed. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, consideration and approval, motion for consideration and approval to employ a social studies teacher at Freeport High School for the 2020-2021 school year for a one-year position. Valley and Mara, thank you.
And I am happy to recommend Jacob Willett as the social studies teacher at Freeport High School. He comes to us with the bachelor's degree from UMO. And one of his references note, Jacob fosters an engaging learning environment for his learner. Jacob creates an environment where the students actually live history. He creates meaningful relationships that encourage students to work very hard. We are excited to welcome Jacob to RSU 5 and Freeport High School.
All right, all those in favor? Oh, Susanna left. Okay. Opposed? I didn't think I saw any. Great. Thank you. Okay, so we are back to public comment. The public comment will be taken via Zoom. So our participant who was on Zoom earlier, if you were still interested in making a comment, now would be the time to raise your hand. And we can bring you into the meeting to share your public comments. We just ask you provide us your name, where you live, and comments to 3 minutes. Do we have? Perfect.
Yes, we have a couple of folks with their hands raised. Sarah Kelly.
Hi there. I wanted to make sure that my audio could be heard.
Yes, we can hear you.
Make sure that my audio could be heard. I'm watching on YouTube and on my phone on Zoom. I came on to comment on the development project, and I really appreciate that Maura brought that up for the board's information. I also was an applicant for the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee, and I had an opportunity to read through the applicant letters for everyone that was chosen, and I'm just so pleased that there were many applicants from the community, and I think that you've chosen an incredibly capable and committed group of people, and I really want to respect this committee for also acknowledging that there's many more opportunities to be involved. That's a really important comment, and I'm so glad that this is moving forward. As for the development, as far as comments that have been made by the board, yes, this is a significant development that was proposed and is coming before the planning committee for a zoning change next Wednesday. I do feel that it's significant to the school fabric, makeup, the class size, our entire community. And they were estimating, the developer estimated that this may contribute 10 to 15 students to our school system, given that it is over 300 single family homes, plus another potentially 200 units on top of 144 units from a different development. This is a significant increase. I was on a call with the slated town board members earlier this week, and they said this could change the fabric of Freeport significantly, up to 20% of our population. I think that it's really important that the school board have a position. I'm so thankful that this was addressed earlier and that you are willing to offer any information. Also, I don't think that it is your responsibility in any way to provide any study but information on capacity and class sizes, which is significant to our students, our educators, our administrators, and just really the nature of our education is so significant. I do know that there's a Facebook group that some of you have joined that is a community-wide Facebook group where there is some action items. There are over 300 members there, so we've got support on voicing our just concerns for the town planning committee. I do know that this meeting is during your next meeting, which is unfortunate timing. However, Carolyn Pelletier, who is our town planner, is welcoming all public comment and all interested stakeholders. And I really want to implore stakeholders within the Pownell and Durham communities, because this will change our public school system, our RSU system. This is not just Freeport community members. I didn't say this being, I'm Sarah Kelly. I'm a Freeport town member. Sorry, I'm not following procedure. I really think this is important for all community members within our RSU district to weigh in on. And so there is an opportunity before next Wednesday to email or write a letter to the town planner and their committee to be heard. I think that as a school board, there can definitely be a unified front. And I also just wanted it documented in the minutes and for all committee members that your voices really matter here, especially our entire RSU is bound together. It's one of the strengths of our joint communities, and I just think that a significant development within Freeport will affect us all. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Nicole Goodrich.
Hi everyone, this is Nicole Goodrich. I am a resident and parent of 3 kids in the RSU 5 district. Just wanted to echo on a comment that has been made during several of the meetings that I've attended and listened to in regards to the lack of substitute teachers. As a parent, I've been, and I know many other parents that have done similar things, is we love to be able to assist teachers by being parent volunteers in the classroom. Obviously, COVID has put a delay and kind of suspended that activity, but I do wonder if more could be done to perhaps create a parent pool that the school district can reach into when there is a need for a substitute or an assistant to a teacher that parents can participate in to kind of help out during the limited substitute teacher availability issue that we have. And in that same spirit, also wanted to see if the board or the district as a whole had more opportunities available for parents to support teachers. As as everyone is well aware, this is a very difficult time for teachers. Our expectations of them have always been a lot, but especially nowadays, I am, very thankful for all of the teachers and academic support that my children and the rest of our community receives. But we want to make sure that we're also giving that back to teachers and are able to, provide them with support, whether that's financial or time, and just tell us what is needed and how we as parents and community members can assist teachers. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. There is one other person on the Zoom attendees. If you'd like to just use the raise hand function, if you'd like to make public comment. Thank you.
Let me just wait a second because there's a bit of a delay. So if they're watching online, it might take a sec for. No? Okay. Well, then I would take a motion for consideration to enter into executive session to discuss labor contracts and proposals pursuant to 1 MRSA section 4056D. Beth and Susanna, thank you. All those in favor? Great. So just at this point, because we're going into executive session, the YouTube live stream will cut off and will be done for the evening, just so you don't think it mistakenly got turned off. So, well, thanks very much.